In the 2 decades since the end of apartheid in South Africa, growing lawlessness and violent crime have triggered an increasingly aggressive response from the country's police. But some fear the police are themselves now out of control. In this episode, South African journalists Stefan Hofstadter and Mzilikazi wa Africa investigate the activities of one elite unit amid shocking allegations of extrajudicial killings. Viewers may find some of the images in this film disturbing.
Durban, South Africa. I'm heading for the hills of KwaZulu-Natal to investigate yet another killing of a man by the police. 20 years after the end of apartheid, this is now an everyday story. My newspaper has uncovered evidence of officers using torture, shooting to kill, and allegedly leaving suspects to die. In this film, I want to get to the bottom of why this is happening. So we're traveling towards a small village called Msinga Top, and that's where Philani Malinga was assaulted in his hut by 3 police constables. Oh, this is beautiful.
Oh, that's the house.
Which one?
At the back there.
Retired schoolteacher Ntombana Malinga is 98. One night in June, she was woken by the police. They were after her grandson, but never said why.
I was tied behind the back.
Oh, Philani was handcuffed with his hands at the
His
back.
arms were tied by the back.
Oh.
Ntombana tells me that Philani Malinga was taken to a hut by the police and beaten. When she tried to follow, they threw her to the ground.
After a few seconds, I heard Philani screaming.
Then the police left. Philani lay fatally wounded.
He said, he was saying, Gogo, I'm dying. Gogo, I'm dying. I wonder even today, what's that wrong did he do to deserve such a cruel death?
I thought it was incredibly sad. A person who's 98 years old, who's lived in South Africa, has been through so much. There's so many abuses happening in these rural areas where there's no media attention, they happen under the radar. I traveled to Soweto, 350 miles away. It's a place like many where police brutality remains unchecked. A staggering 667 people were killed by the police this year. The number tortured is up by nearly 90%. Lawyer Peter Geordie specializes in cases of police brutality.
This is a police station.
Now, this is Kliptown police station. This is one of the.
This is where these 2 women.
Where there's been a lot of cases.
Where these 2 women were tortured. In the last month, the matter has gone to court. It's been established as a fact that my 2 clients, who are both youngish women, were tortured here in connection with the theft of a cell phone from a police officer.
Over the past 20 years, Peter has fought and won a seemingly endless succession of cases against the police.
Down there, in there. They would have been tortured in there.
In
the cell block down there, down that passageway. One of them in particular was savagely tortured. She was beaten, she was kicked, she was tortured, essentially wrapped in a blanket with her head out the one end, her feet out the other, unable to breathe because somebody's holding her mouth and nose closed. This is done repeatedly. It's a standard technique. It's the smothering technique.
Your clients have already won the case.
Yes, they've won the case.
And there's no dispute that they were tortured.
No dispute that they were tortured, as they say, in this police station. I've had cases from here where people were taken from here, tortured at another police station, and then brought back here. I have no doubt that all the police officers know what is happening. Here's Freedom Square, a couple of 100 meters from Kliptown Police Station. This is where Nelson Mandela had a prime role in drawing up the Freedom Charter.
My colleague Mzilikazi wa Africa and I have been trying to get to the bottom of the story for the past 5 years. Perhaps the most shocking case we have come across is that of an alleged death squad, commanded by one of the most senior officers in the South African police service.
Okay, this is General Johan Boysen.
He started out as a constable in the uniform branch in 1977, and he's a career cop who gradually worked his way up through the ranks. One of Johan Boysen's squads, the Cato Manor Organized Crime Unit, was staffed by people close to him. The same names kept cropping up in killings. Over and over again, the same group of people were involved. You had Johan Boysen, who had a very close relationship with Willie Urifu. He in turn had a close relationship with Eugene van Tonder and Morsi Mostert, and all of them had a relationship with Anton Locum.
Most of them, they joined the police service during the Apartheid era.
These four people, over years and years, I mean decades literally, having a close relationship with Johan Boysen, being involved in literally 30 cases of suspicious killings that we identified in a period of just 4 years.
If you start looking at 30 dead people in 4 years, and the people who were at the scene of the shooting is almost the same people, start asking yourself a question: is this a coincidence or what?
I have been given access to the place where the Cato Manor unit was based. It's in one of the poorest, most violent areas of the city. So we're on our way to the Cato Manor police station, part of the same precinct, but a separate building, where the Cato Manor Organized Crime Unit had its base. Mzilikazi and I have been writing about the story for 5 years, but this is the first time that I, or any other journalist, has been inside. So this is the briefing room. The commander would sit here and brief his members about the operations to come. So I can just imagine, it's a serious organized crime unit in South Africa, which has very high levels of crime. So the types of briefings here could have been quite hair-raising. Multiple murders, rapes, and of course that put them under a lot of pressure to get results. Is there someone else who would go on television?
It's very difficult. It's very difficult because of...
The organized crime unit may have left here 3 years ago, but its members still generate fear. People don't want to be the face of this thing.
This is life and death.
But when you say life and death, you mean there's the risk of life and death.
If I show myself showing you,
Yeah. One has just told me that having his face shown on television, showing us around, could put his life at risk. The organized crime unit was armed with high-powered assault rifles, and its members were regularly drilled in how to use them. 27 officers who worked here are now facing 116 charges, including 28 of murder. So there's almost a gallows humor about everything here. I mean, here's a cartoon, and the speech bubble says "last round," and next to him is a painting of a prisoner holding up prison bars, suggesting that he'll never make it out alive. This, I understand, is where they tortured suspects. Among the evidence now in the hands of the authorities is a video from 2004 of a suspect being tortured. The blurry mobile phone footage shows a naked suspect being in turn humiliated, beaten, and suffocated by Cato Manor detectives. He is clearly terrified. This torture video was shot by police reservist Ari Denikas. He fled South Africa in fear for his life from his former colleagues in 2008. He witnessed torture from the start.
I was invited by one of Boyson's higher-ranking officers, and we entered a room where there were two Africans. That was the very first time I viewed the methods of the unit. Those two Africans were naked, stripped naked, tied up, and they were beaten. And they were hitting them on the ribs, and they said, we hit them on the ribs, so we don't hit them on the face, so we don't leave marks. When I have spotted those guys stealing cars, I arrest the suspect before he's about to run, and there's the police comes afterwards.
This CCTV footage shows Ari arresting a suspect. He has turned whistleblower after 10 years of mixing with the alleged death squad. This is Boyson in the house of a man he became very, very close to, Ari Denikas. He said he started becoming very unhappy with the way that the unit was working. And he had several confrontations with Boyson. He showed him a video that he took of his men torturing a suspect, and Boyson didn't act.
I remember his exact words. They're killing whites, they're destroying this country. And we had to do something about it. And that's how we're getting confessions. We get the job done. That was always the case. We get the job done.
Many of the unit's documents have been left behind at Cato Manor, including endless complaints about the behavior of its officers. Oh, here's a good one. Human rights in policing. So this is a human rights in policing course that members were obliged to attend, which is rather ironic. This is where the section commander his office was. Yes, this is where the operational decisions would be made. Let's pounce on these suspects now, jump in the cars outside. Large posses, all armed with assault rifles. And sometimes a suspect would be brought back here, if the suspect was alive, and then interrogated here. On a mission in 2009, Cato Manor officers went to intercept a supermarket robbery. They were acting on a tip-off, so knew exactly what was being planned. Yet out of 9 suspects, 5 were killed. The Cato Manor officers told investigators the robbers opened fire on them, but the evidence suggests there may be a different explanation. Here's a ballistic report, and the conclusion is that the position of the firearm on top of blood is questionable and gives the impression that there was possible tampering with the crime scene.
If you look at this photo, you can see that if this man here who was holding this gun when he was shot, his blood was supposed to be on top of his gun. But look, if you look at here, is the gun that is on top of the blood, meaning that someone planted the gun there on the scene on top of his blood.
If you look at the cases, you'll see that these guys were shot execution style. It was standard procedure for every member in the Cato Manor unit. If you shoot a suspect and there's a problem, it's unjustifiable, all you do is take a firearm, shoot a few times in the air, take the firearm, wipe it, put it in his hands, and there you go. You had a gun. I shot him. And they could get away with murder.
And after killing, the Cato Manor officers liked to party. There it is, the braai. The one famous photograph that was published in the Sunday Times was of a whole lot of the members standing behind this barbecue, some brandishing firearms, which is against police regulations, with one of these tables covered in bottles of brandy and rum and beers. And they're wearing the same clothes that they were wearing during the shootout just hours before. where they'd killed 5 suspects in one incident, which I find quite astonishing. Prosecutors allege that Cato Manor members took sides in fights between rival taxi associations. In South Africa, taxis carry millions to work every day. It's a lucrative business, and violent turf wars with multiple shootings are common. In 2008, the Cato Manor squad got involved. In just 6 weeks, they shot dead 5 leaders of one taxi association. The chairman, Bongani Mkhize, was convinced that he was next. He went to court to get a restraining order to prevent the police from killing him.
Basically, he was scared because he was the only one who was left. He went to the police and told them that, okay, if I did something wrong, if you think that I did something wrong, you must take me in front of my lawyer. Do not take me in the corner, do not shoot me, but they did not do that.
Just a month later, the police did shoot Bongani Mkhize. They said he was firing at them, but there were no fingerprints on the gun by Bongani's body. The bullet cases did not match the gun, and the window he was supposedly firing through was wound up. In this case, we have 3 ballistic reports that show that all the shots were fired from the outside of the vehicle towards the vehicle, and that no shots were fired from the inside. Glass particles are still embedded in the door, rubbers at the top. This is an indication that all the windows were closed during the incident. The Mkhize family have won a civil case against the police. They have secured compensation, but what they really want is a criminal conviction and to see the killers behind bars.
From the beginning, from the day Dad died, we were very, very scared for our lives. If they decide to do anything to us, no one will know, because they know us, we don't know them. We don't know how angry they are, because we're putting them into the fire. So we are still scared, I won't lie.
So how much did the overall head of the Cato Manor unit know about the killings? Johan Boysen has always maintained that, as regional commander, he did not know in detail what his officers were doing.
There's Boysen, there's another member, and me. We fly with a police chopper to a crime scene. Every big operation, high-profile case, Boysen will be there. If he's far away, he get in the chopper, he fly there.
Ari Danikas claims that Johan Boysen knew exactly what his officers were doing and would visit crime scenes in order to remove evidence of wrongdoing.
Everywhere you go to, you hardly have any survivors. All you have is dead people. And always Boysen will be there. He'll go there to manage the scene, because Boysen was he was a master crime scene investigator.
Hi, is that General Boysen? Hi, Stefan, how are you? Good, how are you?
In 2013, I called General Boysen and put Ari's allegations to him.
News again. I'm trying to keep out of it, but you guys don't give me a break. We received some allegations from Danikas. He says he showed you video footage on his cell phone of people being tortured, and he showed it to you, and that you didn't do anything about it. Such a blatant lie. We've got footage. Doesn't say that he showed it to me, Stefan. Okay.
But there is a video that does put Johan Boysen firmly at the center of the action and raises serious questions about his behavior. One night, the Cato Manor squad was in a shootout with a gang of suspected robbers. Ari Danikas was with Boysen when he got the call.
There's this big shootout, and there's a problem. We get in the cars, police sirens, we drive to the crime scene.
Ari started filming on his mobile phone as officers stood over one badly wounded man.
He was moving in a pool of blood, shouting, tried to get up. The people were talking to him in Afrikaans, making fun of him. They're just waiting for him to die. Basically, they were waiting for him to die.
Ari claims the men who were shot were lured into a trap with the help of an informer. He says he was told to pick up police casings to disguise what he believes was an execution.
they were in the mercy of the team, and they just shot them dead. The unit was a death squad.
Johan Boysen denies that the Cato Manor unit was a death squad and claims that an ambulance was called for the man.
Danicus claims you were present when you deliberately allowed this man to bleed to death before calling an ambulance.
That I deny in the strongest possible terms. Arrival there. I was told that the ambulance had already been summoned.
Boysen's girlfriend, Captain Adele Sonicus, can also be heard on the recording. Johan Boysen was charged, but in court succeeded in getting the case against him dropped. The Cato Manor officers will stand trial next year. Ari Danikas has refused to return to South Africa to testify, fearing he would be killed.
Boysen's a very fearsome man, and his favorite saying was, "I can make people disappear." He's known for that. I can make people disappear.
I asked General Boysen for an interview for this film, but he declined. Crime is rampant in South Africa. So could it be that torture and execution are routinely used as a shortcut by officers under intense pressure to crack cases? I arranged to meet a contact who is currently serving. He cannot be identified.
In the apartheid years, we had brutality in the police. Why do we have police brutality now in South Africa, now in the Rainbow Nation? The problem is, these are endemic problems created by the leadership of the police. The politicians have basically appointed comrades in the police. Why is there so much political interference in the police right now? My personal opinion is that it is to protect senior people and senior policemen who are involved criminally themselves. They are doing it purely for criminal reasons.
You think these killings and the torture is officially sanctioned? It's under instruction from their commanders, or even going right high up into the hierarchy?
Oh, of course, naturally they do. As long as there is political interference in the police, I don't think you're going to solve these problems overnight. People like me, yes, they are fed up, and they just have to turn a blind eye, so we don't become targets of our own police trying to execute us and take us out.
One of the things that I found quite shocking about this story is that many people knew about what these detectives were doing. Yeah, so this used to be an open space, which was previously the interrogation room. It's now been partitioned up. So this is where suspects were tortured. I just really feel that we shouldn't be in any space where torture is happening. That was all supposed to end at the end of apartheid, and we now have a very strong Bill of Rights and a human rights culture. So I feel really disappointed that something like this could still exist. 20 years after the end of apartheid, for many poor black South Africans, police brutality remains a part of day-to-day life. Nelson Mandela's Rainbow Nation is not yet the land he dreamed of.
We tried to put the allegations in this film to the Cato Manor officers we have identified. None, aside from Boysen, would respond.